We are on our way to Gadsden Collector Con, although this is a pretty shady route.
I'm going the way the GPS is telling me to go, and I don't care if it's right or wrong as long as it gets me there.
So we're just going to be live streaming, having a little bit of fun on the trip, just to see what kind of stuff we can get into. But the first topic I want to discuss is the absurdity of how long it took us to meet and how close we've lived, from each other, basically growing up our entire lives.
Yeah.
Now we said it was like about 5 miles apart on our childhood homes and stuff.
It's a one turn, like from his street to my street was a one turn, basically.
Yeah, it's crazy. Now we were in different suburbs that are technically cities. One is much more of a city than the other, but in rival high schools. We both played in band.
Mm-hmm.
What year did you graduate?
From high school, I graduated in 2001.
Okay. Graduated in 98. So I'm a little bit older. Enough to miss each other. Well, no.
We football games together.
Yeah.
On the opposite sides of the field.
And if you ever paid attention to that third bass drummer on the rival school, that was me.
I was too busy flirting with all the girls.
So, yeah, it was. So let's start at the beginning. Jamie and I met at Siege 2023 outside of Pinky's Arcade and Bar at the taco truck. I walked up. I'd already been watching some of his videos and stuff. I walked up and said, "Hey man, I really like your videos."
No, you didn't go like that. You're misremembering. You might have thought you walked up and said, "I liked your videos." You walked up and just started talking to me, like casually, and I didn't know anybody had ever seen any of my videos. And I was like, I thought you just wanted some tacos. And it wasn't until like I got my tacos and walked away and you followed me that I was like, oh, he might know who I am. And then you told me you liked my videos. You walked up and you're like, hey, how's it going? Before that, and I was like, it's going well, man. How are you doing? But that was the first time anybody ever recognized me anywhere.
Hey, sometimes it's nice to be the first. But yeah, that's where we first met, and then I think it was at a live stream for Jen and Scott for Retro Rivals, where we both discovered that we were living in the same metropolitan area in the same state.
Yep.
And then we started messaging after that, and found out that we had nearly run across each other multiple times. So there was the rival high schools thing. There was the fact that I was into Magic the Gathering from 94 until about 99. I shopped at a card shop that you worked at.
You sure did.
And I still don't. I only saw the owner working the shop ever. I never saw anyone else.
Well, I mean, I was in school, so it was like a after-school job and sometimes weekend sort of thing.
Okay.
And so I kind of just worked when I had time. And
yeah.
Like everybody back then, he paid me under the table in product. So
yeah,
it wasn't like you have to be there at 7:30. It was, you show up and work a couple hours and I'll give you like some cards. Like, perfect deal.
Hey, perfect deal for him. No taxes for you. Yeah. You get to have some stuff that you want. Seems pretty good. Seems legit. So we never ran across each other from where you worked. I worked at a comic book shop that's fairly popular in the area. and you never ran into me there. Although I worked at the anime part of it mostly. Every once in a while I was like running the comic book shop and babysitting the Magic tournaments and stuff. Where else? I worked at a used video game store, and let's see, were you heavily collecting in the early 2000s?
No, but I was like dabbling in it.
Okay.
I was definitely dabbling in it. Like, I was going back and buying old PlayStation 1 games back then. Which at the time felt super like retro, even though they were only like 5 years old. But yeah, no, I was in like Game Exchange and all those stores, and so yeah, I mean, like, I just don't know how we didn't run into each other.
And long back then, I had very long brown hair, and still, like, nope.
Yep, nope. Luxurious locks.
Yeah.
In a quarter mile, turn right onto Alabama 75 South, Parkway East.
Oh, we're getting there. So we missed each other there. We both. No, you went to a different college.
Yeah.
So we didn't do that. We didn't. It wasn't that absurd.
South, Parkway East.
Let's see. And then for a while, you kept on hearing rumors about.
In a quarter mile,
this
turn
is
left onto the I-59 north ramp to
not
Gadsden.
a safe place.
I got it, dude. We'll get there, man. These cars, they'll move out of the way. They'll make room for me.
They'll make room. Then there was like, you heard rumors about another collector that you had not met in the in the metro area.
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys go out hunting, like game hunting, and you go to a bunch of random shops and stuff, and they'll say things like, oh, that, some other collector got that. And I'm like, what other collector? You feel like you're some sort of like forensic accountant trying to figure out, who are these other collectors? And you run into them at conventions and like when you're out and about, especially if you go like yard sailing. Like, you'll all end up like hitting the same yard sales over and over again, but I never ran into him.
Turn left.
I know there's like 3 or 4 other collectors in my area, and I know, like, I thought I knew them all, but I did not.
I never heard anything about like other collectors and stuff. It was, I just mainly showed up with the wallet and, made my wish list disappear.
Yeah.
I wonder how many things that I got ahead of you on stuff where it was like, oh, well, I got this and you didn't, or, vice versa.
Oh, I'm sure that happens all the time. Like, I can guarantee, like, if you're a collector and you're in an area that the other collectors have stuff in their collection that, like, they just beat you to it by like a day or two. Like, a bunch of that stuff could have been yours. So there's some
professional rivalry there.
Yeah, I was going to say animosity, but we can go with that too. Yeah, but like, it's fine, because I used to feel like back in the olden days, pre-YouTube era for me, like, those people were my rivals. Like, they were out to get me. But now I'm like, we're all on the same team because we're all like collectors from the same area. Because now that I'm in like this YouTube sphere, and Mondane's in this YouTube sphere, like, you kind of group together with your like local buddies, but your local buddies can be so spread out and so far apart. Like, we're going to meet up with like Arkansas Picker and Retro Wolf. They stayed with me last night. They're in our little group, but like, Arkansas Picker's a 6-hour drive from us.
Yeah.
But like, that's how small this community is, and so I feel like we're all in that sort of little, I have to take care of the people, the collectors in my area, right? I'm like, yeah, that's what it is. So I don't really care if anybody beats me to the games, and I also don't want to feel like a jerk, like out there and trying to like scoop stuff out from under other people, because I have so much. Like, why grab some $20 game and flip it for $30 when I just let somebody else have it and enjoy it?
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I don't know. For the longest time, I just kept on scooping up multiple copies of Grandia and like giving it to my friends for birthday and Christmas and stuff. Now the game's gotten ridiculously expensive, and yeah, I gave my last copy to Scott and Jen.
Really?
Yeah. My last extra copy. I did not. I still have a card game, and I'm not willing to give it up. It's too good, especially with like how the story was so different from everything else in the era. Yeah, everyone else was gloom and doom and must save the world, and it's, you know, you start off in this one where it's, hey, you're just trying to be in the Adventurers Guild.
Yeah.
And like go out and have like fun and be lighthearted about things. Very, very different for the time. Let's see.
Mundane has an entire clipboard of questions sitting in his lap right now, by the way. I can see it like he brought a clipboard in the car. I don't. I just
better to be prepared. I don't know.
I was my shock when he pulled that out was palpable.
Well, I mean, it's what, an hour-long trip to get there? And,
yeah, we got about 45 minutes or so.
Yeah. And I just thought of another question that
ask away, man.
All right.
Do it.
So, like, I know that you play all of your games randomly and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How do you tackle the games like Death Stranding, where there's a like community-style time limit on it? Because that game, you can encounter things, you know, that other players are doing. Like, you experienced it with Journey.
Yeah, right.
Stuff.
So, I mean, there's a lot of those, like, online kind of meta experiences. Journey, Dark Souls has those, Elden Ring, Death Stranding. You know, those are interesting little things in games, but excluding Journey, I typically consider that like a bonus. I'm not really that concerned about it, and I watch a lot of people do, like, you know, Dark Souls content. Sorry about the bumpy road, guys. This is like
It's classic Alabama.
yeah, we're basically off-roading at the moment. You know, they just turn the online features off. So while it's really cool, and in a game like Death Stranding, it's this integral part of the story, I don't let that like stress me out or worry about it too much, because the games are good about simulating that experience. So a lot of those messages and things you find in Death Stranding, and the ladders and the drop points, and the designers put that in the game for people that aren't playing online. So I feel like you get a similar experience anyway. But that's a great question. That never like comes into play in the random algorithm thing. That's just like something I don't worry about. Like the online multiplayer in most games. I'm like, it doesn't even exist to me. I'm like, that's fine.
All right, so I guess I'm gonna like go to the clipboard now.
Let's do it.
So, what do video games mean to you?
Video games are like, you know, an important part of my life. They're an important part of a lot of people's lives. Growing up, I liked video games, and, you know, I played them like everybody else, but I wasn't super into video games. I didn't think they were special. They were just kind of something to occupy my time. But it wasn't really until I started hanging out with other gamers and realizing what like video games meant to them, and playing games that weren't just quick sort of time wasters. But the big, most impactful, I guess, video gaming moment for me was with my mother. She had a congenital defect called a Chiari malformation, which is where her brain grew down into her spinal column, and it was kind of choking the that part of her brainstem, and it ended up paralyzing half her body. So she was bedridden for most of the last few years of her life, and she was like going through bouts of depression. She couldn't see her friends, like she couldn't hang out. She lived this vibrant life, and then all of a sudden could no longer do that. So I got her into World of Warcraft, and she like lived her life in that game. Like her friends were in World of Warcraft. She had all her adventures in that game. That was like her outlet, and that became her world. And if it wasn't for that video game, you know, I don't know what she would have done. Just laid in bed and watched TV all day, which is, you know, sad and boring. But I realized from that there are a lot of other people out there in the world with similar experiences, where video games are like everything to them. That is their whole world. And a lot of people would say that's sad, but the truth is, for a lot of people, that's just as important as like a relationship they would make with a person in the real world. Their relationship with characters in the games, the stories they experienced. And I started thinking back, and you know, a lot of stories and moments I had in games were more memorable to me and more impactful than like traveling to another country. You know, I went to the Netherlands and I had a great trip, but like the story of The Last of Us meant more to me than that and was more interesting, and I think back on it more fondly. So I think games are like, just like any form of media or any form of art, like they touch people and they, you know, can change who you are. But it takes someone like opening the door to that concept for it to work for a lot of people. And that's kind of how it was for me.
I guess it's like just an experience for some people where, you know, some people get a very moving experience from like going and seeing the Mona Lisa.
Yep.
And video games, and I mean movies, books can be an experience. And yeah, so like, yeah, any kind of media, that's a really good point. Oh, nice watch, by the way.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's a Rolex. Those of you guys who haven't seen my Rolex video that I accidentally released to the public, that was supposed to be a private member-only video where I told this very personal and introspective story about why I bought and would even want a $13,000 watch. And I scheduled it to be released to the channel members and accidentally clicked public, and I noticed the next morning it had like 300 views about 20 minutes after it came out, and I was like, what the crap? I immediately set it back to members only, and then I read the comments, and they were like so overwhelmingly supportive, and several were like, the first comment I read said, "You have no idea how much I needed to see this video today of all days." Now, they didn't say what it was or the reason, but like apparently that video gave them something they needed that day. And so I went and made it public, and I've never had a video where the response from the public was so good. There were only like 2 negative comments that were like, "Why would you ever do that? That's so crazy." Everybody else is like, "I'm on board with you. You did the right thing," which was amazing. That video did like extremely poorly on YouTube because it had no search engine optimization and nothing in the description box, because it was supposed to be just a members only video.
Yeah.
So I didn't even like put it under the right category. I just put it under like gaming, and I don't mention a video game anywhere in the video. So YouTube's like, I don't know what this video is, but my subscribers enjoyed it, and it felt good to do that. And I realized that while my YouTube channel is like very much a gaming channel, I don't have to 100% talk about gaming all the time. That people will listen to me talk about something else, that I have the ability to talk about something else. But it was still it was an interesting experience. Oh, the video also came out on a Tuesday morning at 8 a.m., which is...
Yeah, I was looking at that going, wait a minute, this is way off schedule. And so I started watching it, and it's a very genuine video.
Oh, it's 100% genuine.
It is a very, very genuine video. And like, you know, I've opened up a few times on about certain things and stuff, like my story about the Guardian Legend, you know, video gaming with my granddaughter, that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's really surprising. Like, it's kind of scary to open up like that on YouTube. But yeah, if I had a video, well, I do have a video, but people thank me for a different reason. But yeah, I mean, that's amazing that you were able to like help someone that much with one of your videos, even though it was completely accidental and on like releasing it. And yeah, I mean,
just completely off top, like just completely nothing. I don't have a problem like opening up. Like, I don't really have an issue with that, or you know, talking about my past or anything. I'm not ashamed of anything. I'm not embarrassed by it. I just didn't want to like disappoint the people that come to me for something, right? Like, people come watch my videos to learn about video games. They hear me talk about video games, and here's like this guy just rambling about some ultra luxury product he bought. Like, what value does that provide to the people watching the video? And that's all I want to do, is like provide them with value, because I don't want to do like some self-indulgent thing where I talk about how cool I am, and here's my awesome collection, and here's all my cool stuff that you don't have. It's more like, what can I give to you? Like, I want to give a gift. And this video is not a gift. It is a self-indulgent diatribe about me revealing my past and my motivations for doing something. And while the motivation is like earnest and there's a reason for it, I didn't think but ended up providing a lot of value to everybody. And that's what surprised me about the video, was that people got something out of it, even though it didn't walk away from that video knowing anything more about themselves. They just walked away knowing more about me. But it turns out that it helped them look inward and maybe understand something better about themselves. And I didn't understand that when I made the video.
yeah.
And that kind of opened up something, I don't know, to me that I didn't realize I had in me. Everybody's like, you know, they say I'm a great storyteller. I'm like, okay, but when you have like 60 or 80 comments where people are like, that's an incredible story, you're an amazing storyteller, I don't know, it gives you the confidence to maybe think, like, I can do something else on YouTube and not just talk about like, these are the top 10 games you need to buy, or, you know, let's go game hunting. Maybe I can talk about some other stuff outside of that's tangentially related. And I'm going to try to do that today. We're not going to a gaming convention. We're going to a collector con. There's going to be all kinds of stuff there. Maybe I can give my views on how I feel about LARPing swords or whatever the coins. I mean, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But it was an incredible response from everybody. And my Discord is messaging me right now. Sorry about that. But yeah, I was just that. It was a happy accident.
Well, I mean, like, you're talking about, you know, you didn't know if it was going to give any value to someone else. It's like it did give value. It gave some people, you know, the idea of introspection on a similar topic in their own lives that you didn't know about. You might have, you know, inspired someone to not be afraid to do something, you know, as financially risky as buying a $13,000 watch.
Yeah.
Yikes. I'm not there yet.
It's scary. I mean, it's scary, but that money was there for the purpose of the watch. It wasn't like I took money out of my retirement. It wasn't like I, you know, sold a bunch of stuff. I've been just like putting money away for years to do this, and that's what its purpose was. It's like saving money to replace the roof on your house. Replacing the roof on your house is like 20 grand, but like everybody has to do it. It feels a lot worse when it's a surprise and you have to like borrow money, or you have to like, take it out of the kid's college fund. But if you're like just putting away $300 every month for the past 20 years, and it's time to put the roof on, you're like, well, that's what we were planning to do all along. This kind of felt like that. It was a lot of money, and it's like crazy to call your bank and have them like wire money to someone. But it was like,
you went past the $5,000 mark, so
yeah,
you got flagged.
I did get flagged. They want to know why in the world you're sending that specific amount of cash to another state, and I just told them it was for a watch, and they're like, oh, what kind of watch? And you told them, they're like, okay, it's fine. They just do it. But it's the same thing. You call your insurance, and then you're like, I got to insure the watch, and they're like, do you have the proper paperwork, and how much did you pay for it? You got it. And they're like, okay, that's a thing. But it's a thing. I've never. The only two things I've ever bought in my life that were that expensive were, other than a house, was a car.
Yeah.
That's it. But this is a watch. It does nothing more and is strictly worse in every single way than a $15 Casio. The only reason it's better is because of the prestige, which is important, right? I want to feel like I'm better than everybody else. Not really, but that's what most people get watches like this for. The second is that it has more value than I paid for it. I could go sell it right now, and it's going to appreciate over time. So really, I didn't spend $13,000. I just took $13,000 of cash and turned it into $13,000 for the steel that sits on my wrist. And then, to honor my dad, who wanted me to have it. That was it. That was the sole reason. But the sole four reasons. The four sole reasons that I got it. But
so have you thought about engraving it?
No.
Or anything? Okay.
Absolutely not.
Because once upon a time I was an engraver. I was a master engraver.
Yeah. Now the second you engrave it subtracts out of the class. That wouldn't be that big of a deal. But
yeah,
they're like $1,600.
I'm way off.
Yeah, it's crazy. It'll blow your mind. The little wheel you turn to change the time is $800.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, the hands on it are like $600.
Yikes.
Oh yeah, this is like big boy stuff. It's like when you hear about people getting so I'm not rich, but I know some wealthy people, and my wife has a wealthy family member, and he lives in California sometimes. He lives all over the world, but he has a house near us, and he owned a Bentley SUV that he drove none miles. He just bought it and put it in his garage. He paid, I don't know how much it was, $350,000 for this SUV. Anyway, he got a notification from them that it was time to get an oil change. And the Bentley dealership is in Atlanta, 3 hours away. So he called me to go over to his house and let the Bentley people into his garage to pick up the Bentley and take it to Atlanta on a tow truck, change the oil, and then drive it back to Birmingham to put it back in the garage. So I did all this, right? I let them in to get the Bentley. They went and changed the oil, brought it back. I let them in to drop off the Bentley. So they drove from Atlanta to Birmingham, 3 hours, picked up the car and drove it back. So that's 6 hours of travel time. Changed the oil, which costs like $70, you would think. Then drove it back. So we got 12 hours of travel time and an oil change, that's already so luxurious. Anyway, how much was that service? Because they left the bill with the Bentley to just pay. He can just pay it, at his first convenience. Not now. He's good for it, right?
Yeah, they know his credit score.
Yeah, they know his credit score. I've never been so shocked by anything in my entire life as I was by seeing that bill one, it was just like it was just a rate. It wasn't like itemized. It's just how much this thing cost. It was $16,000. It was $16,000 for an oil change, and $6,000 of that was the travel. Now I've been trying to figure out how they calculated that. All I can think is it was like 3 hours and 3 hours and 3 hours, so 12. So they're charging $500 an hour for travel time, and then the oil change was just a flat like $10,000. Like that's just what that costs. And he's like, "Yep, go ahead." And like that.
For that amount.
Yeah.
It might be an older one, but still you could like walk onto a used car lot and pick up a car for his oil change.
But yeah, I get it. But this is what's crazy. The car was unused. It was just sitting in a garage, never had been driven, was not being driven. The oil was changed, and it was still never driven. So that was a thing that just happened like every 3 months on a car that was not being used. Like, what? Like the car is, it's like in a showroom, right? They're changing the oil on a car in a showroom essentially every 3 months. And he's like, "That's just what you do with the car." And I'm like that. I can't even fathom that. I can't even fathom that. So yeah, that's that high end stuff like that. It like a $13,000 Rolex to them is like they spend more than that on a meal, just like bottle service at a restaurant.
Oh my gosh.
They'll spend $20 or $30 or $40,000 going out to eat. It's just that I can't even fathom that kind of money. Like I said, it blows my mind. So around them, I can't show off on my wife's family.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's a crazy, crazy thing. So I guess we'll get to the next question. You grew up like kind of in the middle of nowhere times. Let's see. So I wasn't even paying attention that we had to go. I can't. Okay, yeah, it's gonna keep disconnecting us because we're just really in the middle of nowhere. So yeah, for me, the Bit Wars was like one kid during Christmas asked for a Genesis, one kid for Christmas asked for a Super Nintendo, and me, I asked for TurboGrafx because it was the other quote 16-bit system that was available. None of us kids got a Neo Geo because, my God, way too expensive. But that's how we defeated the Bit Wars. Was like, well, we're all going to be spending the night at each other's houses and having fun and whatnot. So let's each get a different system so that everyone in the neighborhood can experience everything. But I'm pretty sure that whole thing was very different for you in the Super Nintendo era.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember anybody growing up having a Super Nintendo. Like everybody around me had a Sega Genesis. And I remember like going to the grocery store, which is where we would rent our games. It was like 85% Sega Genesis stuff and like not Super Nintendo. And I think the reason for that is, and I have a theory on it, was that we have a local mall that is still there called the Galleria. And when it opened up in the 80s, it was like a big deal. It had like a Macy's in it, and at the time, you only saw Macy's in like New York City and like Chicago and stuff. So for little podunk Birmingham, Alabama to get a Macy's was like incredible. But I think that Sega possibly had like a retail deal with Macy's to have their Genesis, like the Genesis sold in Macy's and like not a Nintendo. If you wanted a Nintendo, you would go to Sears. And I just think that like Macy's did better marketing around our neighborhood or something, or our area, because it was way more Sega Genesis where I was than Super Nintendo. And I never played a Super Nintendo till probably shortly before the Nintendo 64 came out.
Oh, wow.
Never played one. I mean, I knew people had them. I had a friend who had a Neo Geo. He was like the rich kid in school. He had a Neo Geo and a bunch of games for it. Like 10 games, which is like, $2,000 worth of stuff. But, yeah, we were like super Sega Genesis, and like we were excited for the Sega CD and the 32X and all that. We were pumped about that.
The 32X.
Yeah, but I was like, I want to get to play Doom on my freaking 16-bit console. But yeah, just the Super Nintendo was not like much of a thing. I did have a friend whose brother had a Super Nintendo, and he had Super Mario RPG. And I remember he got that for his birthday and was playing it and was like, this is the worst game ever made. Like, this is a game made for 10-year-olds. And then we all played Duke Nukem 3D on their PC. Like, that was kind of like my experience with the Nintendo. But I always thought the Nintendo...
Didn't have enough tude.
It didn't have enough tude. Like, I didn't know any better back then. And I bought into the whole hype that, like, the Sega Genesis was the more adult console and the Super Nintendo was for, like, kids' games. So, yeah, I mean, the Bit Wars were like that. But this whole, like, Genesis does what Nintendo don't, that worked on me.
Was there, like, a game that was on Super Nintendo that made you, like, do a double take of, like, man, I'm missing out by not playing that one?
No. I remember, like, so you could go into, like, a Walmart and they would have the game consoles on demo right next to each other, and they would mount these TVs like up on top of the shelving, so you'd like stare up at the ceiling while you played
and ruin your neck.
Yeah, ruin your neck. And I very much remember, I can't remember what game I was playing on Sega Genesis, but it was like some adult game, kind of like Predator or like Zombies Ate My Neighbor. Like, it was like a shooter with like, get that. So yeah, I was like way into the Genesis, and now if you told me, like, am I a fanboy of either one? I don't have like a preference one way or another. Just wherever the good games are, that's what console I'm gonna play. So
yeah,
I feel like equally about them. But growing up, it was all Genesis across the board in my neighborhood. Maybe like out of 50 Sega Genesis, there was like one Super Nintendo or something.
Yeah, it was mainly Super Nintendo around my area. There was a couple of people that had Genesis.
When nobody had a TurboGrafx.
Yeah, and I was probably the only kid in miles. I remember saving up a bunch of money and going and buying the optical CD drive at Toys R Us.
It was what, $200?
It's $300.
Oh my god!
And you can't even get in the ballpark of one of those things for $300 now.
Yeah,
they are ridiculously, and recapping those things. Oh.
They're full of like fish oil capacitors, right?
Yeah, it took, I want to say it took me like 3 hours to recap my TG16 CD drive, and I replaced the middle gear that swells up and stuff. So I fully serviced the thing. Thank you, Console 5. Not sponsored, but I wouldn't mind being sponsored by them. They have really good products. It's a great way to keep your collection alive. I guess that's how I label my collection, as a live collection. If something stops functioning, I don't consider it part of my collection anymore because I can't use it.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I have some non-functional consoles that like are part of the collection, but what are you going to do about a PSX?
I mean, someone is reverse engineering the OS.
Okay. When that happens, that guy cracks Sony's proprietary encrypted hard drive.
It's not going to be that neat. I think they're actually going to be doing something where it's kind of like that hard drive that I gave you that you can just slide into the back and it loads OPL and a couple of other things. So it's going to be a hacked OS that's based on a Linux kernel.
Okay. That's fine. I'll let you handle that.
You let me handle that.
When that happens.
That'll be an entertaining project to see like if we can, if it's possible to resurrect that thing.
All those PSX consoles, they're just, in case you don't know, they were all like a DVR and like a DVD ripper. And like 90% of all the content on all those is just like ripped hentai, just like 100% across the board. It's just like animated boobs. And we opened one up that we got working when we were up at Siege, and it was just like 790 gigs of hentai porn on an 800 gig hard drive. The dude could not get one more file on that hard drive. He like maxed it out 100%. That's what every one of those consoles is like. Like no saved games, nothing. Just ripped, rented hentai porn.
So a weird thing, I've actually seen a US demo model of one.
That's insane.
That's actually in English. It was back when CompUSA was like advertising the thing, and I saw it in the CompUSA. It was fully in English. They are out there. There is a version of the operating system out there. I think it's only a demo version of the operating system, but there is a version of the operating system that is in English where X is yes and circle is no, as opposed to Japanese where circle is yes and X is no. I remember seeing it and I was like, what in the heck is this? And then someone explained, it's a PlayStation 2 with some extra features, and I saw the price tag on like the pre-order and everything, and I was like, that's absolutely insane. Why would anyone ever do this?
Yeah.
And I moved on with my life. And I think the majority of the market did the same thing.
They did the same thing.
And God, you've hit so many of the other questions too. Like,
good.
What side did you choose and why? Is there a game that actually hit you very like emotionally or something? Or?
Yeah, there have been a lot of games that hit me super emotionally. The prime example I can think of would be the original Last of Us, because those characters felt like real. Like I loved those characters in that game, and so much that I named my daughter after one of the characters in that game. But it's an amazing experience, like as good as any movie or book I had ever read, and that was really the first time I felt I had played a game that lived up to that standard. But yeah, it broke me down as a person, and playing The Last of Us 2, but now as a father, like broke me down even more. I couldn't even play that game twice. I played it once and I was like, that was amazing. I never want to play this again. And I kind of want to do a video about that, like games that were one and dones for like different reasons. Maybe they were not great, or maybe they were just too emotionally heavy on you. Like it's so much of a burden to play through them because of the amount of just energy it takes to make it through it in terms of your emotions. So I don't know. I would definitely say the Last of Us series is probably at the top of that.
And you already know mine.
You have a lot. Why don't you tell them?
Well, I mean, like the big number one is Cyberpunk 2077. I have some history of like with the game, the pen and paper and stuff, and being very connected to it, and having a friend who passed away before the video game was released. So that was like kind of feeling reconnected to him during that. I also had a phobia of death and funerals, and the game helped me with that a lot. It's really like a lot of people get shocked when they hear that a video game can help with something as serious as a phobia. Now they've already done cognitive studies, and since you study the brain as well, you'll get a kick out of this. The cognitive study where they where if someone like is traumatized for something from some horrible event, and it's case studies. Thank God it's just case studies. They will hand the person Tetris, and they can cope better.
Yeah.
Like it's something to do with building a cognitive coping mechanism after the trauma, and somehow Tetris helps with that.
Yeah, it's copium all the way, right? Like, yeah, I don't think that all makes logical sense, right? So your like brain's processing power takes away from the, where would you feel like remorse and being like the temporal lobe or something, and you're moving your brain's energy to the frontal lobe or the frontal temporal area of the brain, which is just like your pattern recognition and emotion regulation. So that makes sense, but it's amazing that that's a tool you can use to do that, and that we just even have that, because what would you tell somebody like 100 years ago to do? Like, get over it. You do something like you go
rub
chop
some dirt in it and get over
right.
it.
Or you go chop wood or like dig a hole or something like that, or get in a bar fight. I mean, anything you drink, that's what they used to do.
Yeah, drink a
They
lot.
just drank a lot. That's what it was. And, in between that, they were doing a lot of medically prescribed cocaine. And
Oh my gosh.
that probably helped a lot with that, but we can't do that anymore, at least not legally.
Yeah.
So instead, we have to play the more addictive Tetris.
Yeah,
In half a mile, keep
the
left.
1800s pharmacology was not very kind. For those of you who don't know, Jamie here, he RNG studies the brain for work purposes.
Yeah.
I studied the brain in college. Neuropsychology was like one of the big things I was into. Let's see. What is your proudest moment in video games?
I was ranked top 10 in the world on one of the hardest Japanese shoot 'em ups of all time. And I was the only person in the top 200 from North America. Literally the other
In half a mile,
199
use the left
were all
lane
from
to turn
Japan.
left onto Alabama
What
291
game?
North.
Mushihime
George
Sama
Wallace
for
Drive.
Atari.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was right after the Xbox 360 release. I imported it. I didn't import it. I bought it in Japan and brought it home and played the ever-loving crap out of that game. But yeah, I was ranked in the top 10 for like, I don't know, maybe a couple weeks or something like that.
Wait,
And
which console?
Xbox
At the light,
360.
use the left lane
Yeah,
to turn
yeah.
left onto
Because it had
Alabama
all
You
the
wouldn't have been
leaderboards.
able to do it on
George Wallace
PS2.
Drive.
Yeah.
Nah, yeah, that game didn't even get a release on the PS2. It came out after the PS2's
Oh,
time.
okay.
So the original Mushihime Sama did come out on the PS2, which I've still never even played.
Continue on
Despite the
Alabama
fact that
291 North for half a
I
mile.
paid freaking $180 to import it on the PS2 and bought a Japanese PS2 just to play it. And then about 4 months later, they made a freaking Switch port of it. They sold on limited run games for $40. So, but yeah, that's probably my proudest
In a quarter
gaming
mile,
moment.
turn left.
The one in recent memory is I one credit cleared Silver Surfer on the NES on a live stream, and only died like, I don't think maybe I died 0 times before the final boss, but it was that was an interesting experience too, because everybody's like, that's the hardest
Take the
game
second
ever.
left, then your destination
not
will
that
be on the left.
You can do it. Oh my, we found it.
We found it. We're here.
We're here, dude. I see people in Star Wars t-shirts walking around, so
Oh.
like,
We
this is the
yeah,
place.
yep. Nerd Central. Nerd
Yeah.
Central. Does anyone else need our help here while we're out here doing stuff, or
Need our help doing what?
I don't know, setting up their booth?
No,
We're not gonna.
Your destination.
Oh,
will
I'm
be
not
But
helping
Bucky doesn't have
anybody doing
Bucky
anything.
doesn't have 200 CRTs that we need to pull out
No,
of
no,
it.
no, no, no. That ain't happening, buddy. They're on their own. I'm here to spend money and have a good time, man. I'm not here to work. After Retro Rick's convention, I was a special guest and I got conscripted to run the electrical for that thing. Which took me like 6.5 hours to set up. I'm No.
No,
No.
absolutely
not.
Well, we're here, guys. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for, some of the comments and stuff and the likes. It was actually made the trip a little bit entertaining.
Yeah, it was. It was a good time. I had a great time, dude. I love answering questions. I love people who allow me to talk about myself. That's all I've ever wanted, was just to talk about myself and have people enjoy that. Normally it's like, don't talk about yourself. Talk about them. I can't talk. I wish I could talk about you guys. I can't. I don't know.
There's Madden Looney Jr. in there.
Hope you both have a great time.
Yeah.
No, we will. We'll have a great time.
Yeah.
I gotta show him how to use my camera. He's gonna film for me today.
Yep.
All right.
I'm gonna learn how to use a camera.
We're gonna sign off, guys. We gotta go get our badges and stuff. But thanks so much for hanging out.
Yeah. Thanks. Have a great day.
Let's do this.